Good morning, LinkedIn. Welcome to Let's Build Daily. I'm your host, Chris Carolyn. Happy Wednesday. I got a super special guest today, Joseph Lewin. How you doing, man?
Pretty good, Chris, man. Super special guest. Don't make me blush over here.
Hey, any guest right now is super special. I've been doing this, kind of a one-man show for a little bit and trying to get more people involved, get more knowledge, a little more diverse knowledge set. I can get pretty passionate and carried away with some of these topics, especially this one. So always good to have another voice in the room,
Absolutely, man. Super excited.
And of course, I get these bright ideas, and I'm like, oh man, I see Joe talking with John Joyce. Thank you. And I'm like, man, this would be a great conversation. And I'm like, oh wait, I talk about HubSpot topics most of the time. How am I gonna connect the dots here? It didn't take me very long, but like I do, we talk about and this topic today, about building trust, specifically on LinkedIn, but really, in an online, not that much different from offline habits, just bringing them online and doing some things differently. Like anything else, like any tool or tactic or strategy, there's a right way and a wrong way that creates good results and bad results. So we hope to guide you in the right direction. But where I'm going to connect the dots today is, HubSpot just came out with this really amazing tool. Now I no longer have to go to all the different AI tools to create this content and that content, repurpose here and there. Content remix is really cool. People haven't seen it. I'll just share my screen real quick. But the thing is, like, this is a path towards a lot of content very quickly, but none of it's going to really matter if your mindset isn't in the place that we're going to talk about today. And that is, you can throw content on LinkedIn every day, but if it's all about you and it's not really bringing any value to the community, you become noise really quickly. If people respond to it and you're not there to engage them, they're going to stop engaging. So a lot of these things we'll talk about, it's how you can take advantage of a tool like this. But I just caution you, and that's why I wanted this topic today. This is not an easy button, but I don't think it's as hard as people think it is. Would you agree with that on the surface, Joe?
Yeah. I mean, I think if you're focusing on the right, like you said, if you have the right mindset up front and you figure out what types of content help you build trust the fastest, then you create only those types of content, which can be highly efficient. I mean, an hour a week, 2-3 hours a week from the person who's going to be the face of the content. I mean, realistically, if you've got a team to support you, you could be spending an hour and a half a week to create a ton of really solid content highly efficiently. It becomes almost an easy button at that point. But I think the issue is always, is the content actually meaningful? Is it interesting? Is it entertaining? Is it engaging? Does it help you build relationships and start conversations with people? And if the answer is yes, then you can get a ton of value out of pushing the easy button with some of these awesome AI tools that are coming out. On the flip side, if you just go, how do I create as much content as possible with as little effort as possible? That usually leads you down the totally wrong path, where you're just creating a bunch of spam or a bunch of stuff that, like, cool, you're showing up in people's feed all the time with a bunch of junk that they didn't want to see. I mean, I didn't sign up for health insurance I didn't fill out a form or anything. And all of a sudden this week I've gotten like 50 texts.
Oh
Oh,
man.
Joseph, we know that you're in the market, whatever. And I just got spammed with like 50 text messages. And yeah, are they getting in front of me at scale? Definitely. But it's annoying. I mean, in fact, if I was in the market, I'm going to actively avoid every single person that reached out to me because it's spam. And so, the easy button, if you do it the wrong way, helps you create mega spam at scale, which is just going to end you in the spam folder or have people unfollow you or block you or whatever. Whereas if you are creating the right focus up front, the right mindset up front, you can really be in people's feed all the time and they're going to be looking forward to it.
Yeah. And I think like a common rebuttal there might be, especially if they're engaged in some kind of lead gen, email blasting or ads or something like that. It's like, well, we got 1 or 2 good leads. It's like, sure, you're going to hit sometimes. Like when you play the numbers game, it's a numbers game for a reason. So you're going to hit. But if you didn't play the numbers game and you spent that time on 10 very specific messages, do you get twice the number of sales? Like what potential are you missing out on if you just, take this different approach? And I love to be able to say, and I'd like you to, dig into this a little bit. It's literally just the easy button really is the mindset switch, in that once you understand that all you're doing is taking your offline habits and bringing them online. Like I love comparing LinkedIn to a 24/7 365 trade show.
Yeah.
Right. It's like if
Totally
you're
agree with you.
there and you can be a part of the conversation as much as possible, then you will have a lot of similar experiences and results to those in-person conversations you spend so much time and effort preparing for once or twice a year, right?
Yeah, I want to riff on that. So remind me in a second, but I want to say one thing just to kind of set us up here, and then let's come back to the trade show thing because I think that's spot on. So when we're talking about generating leads, and if you're going to generate tons of leads, and you go, oh, but we've gotten great stuff through leads. Where do your best quality customers come from? The ones that pay you the most. They're not haggling over price every single time. They basically just reorder products from you on repeat, and they stay around for a long time. If you actually go through, most of you right off the top of your head, like 80+% are going to go relationships and referrals. If you sell something that's high dollar, almost guaranteed that came from an existing relationship or referral. And I would kind of include word of mouth in that, because if you've engaged with somebody and had a conversation with them and they trust you, and then they start going and talking with other people about you, that was from a relationship with a person on your team, most likely, not just the fact that you spewed content out there for everybody to see. And if you have pushback to that and you go, oh no, it's lead generation for sure, I would encourage you to go into your data and really parse it out. And if you really break it out on the most profitable accounts, I would say that at least half, if not more, of the people who say that their best quality opportunities come from lead generation or cold outreach. If you actually dig into where you're making the most margins and where you're most profitable, it's still most of the time comes down to the accounts where you built that through relationships and referrals. And I've looked at the data for companies that are selling, that are $50 to $100 million organizations. And when we actually look at the data, almost always the best quality clients came from relationships and referrals. So to me, making that switch where you're focusing more on, okay, how do we scale up these deep relationships with people who buy from us, or that influence the people who buy from us? That's how you're going to grow a more profitable business. Now, you might not grow revenue as fast that way, but you're going to grow profit a lot faster.
Yeah. And I'm guessing back in his high school days, Max did not get a lot of these profitable relationships, as his middle name was Mega Spam. Good to see Max and Saleem. Thanks for joining today. That's right. And the thing is, like, this is where it's simply just a shift to, we're using a different tool because everybody's digital, but it's the same principles, the same reason you build the relationship in person. But before we talk about that trade show, concept, like literally, I mean, one of my roles, the first thing I got approval on as a marketing leader was a sales navigator, strategy, and like 25 users got approved. And, that was my olive branch to the sales team. It's like, hey, I'm not here to, do whatever you think I'm going to do. Like, this is where you start. Here's a great tool for the team to use. But I learned a lot in that process where, when a veteran salesperson says, what do I say to somebody after they accept the connection request? Right? That's often the level of knowledge. Like, they might have had LinkedIn on their phone for years, right? But it's been the job resume, job search, platform for them. But when that person says that, it's just taking a step back. First of all, it's a very easy, at least it was for me in the moment, since I'm used to talking about this, but it's like, imagine you just knocked on their door and they opened it. What would you say? That's what you say. That's all it is. We're starting conversations here.
Yeah.
Right? So
yeah, I mean, and I would say even with the trade show. So let's go to if you're cool, we'll transition to that, the idea of this trade show, because I agree with you. It's like a giant networking event or trade show. Now, a lot of times when people think of trade show, I'd say you still need to make a mindset switch with your trade shows if you're going to see immense value come out of them. Like, if you're focused primarily on how do we make our booth so awesome that people just think that we're the coolest place in town and they want to come and talk with our team. What are they going to remember? They're going to remember the squishy ball that you gave them and throw it away after the conference and forget about you. Or they're going to go, that was a really cool booth. I can't remember who it was, but they had a really awesome booth. And it's like, okay, you just dropped $100,000 so that somebody remembers that you did something cool, but they don't even remember that it was you, So that's still that focus on you as a company. But the truth of the matter is, the market doesn't care. Your ideal customers don't care about you. They don't care about your products, your services. They don't care about your pain points and problems. Your ideal customers care about themselves. They care about their pain points and problems. They care about what keeps them up at night. Like, if they've got acid in their stomach from stress and they can't sleep because they're getting heartburn from stress in their job, they're not thinking about you. They're thinking about that issue that's making it so they can't sleep. They're thinking about how they're going to pay their employees, or how they're going to solve this problem that if they don't deal with it, they're going to get fired. Like, that's what they care about. And they care about their hopes and dreams and desires, their goals for their business or their career. And so when you talk about, think of it, when you go to a party, who's the person that you want to talk to and that you're going to remember? Is it the person who talked about themselves the whole time? Or is it the person who's going to ask you really great questions and makes you talk? You're always going to gravitate towards a person that focused on you. And as a business and with content and at trade shows, and LinkedIn is no different. If you focus most of your attention on how can I help solve the problem of my customer, whether it's something I directly solve or not, can I talk about topics that are going to help them do their job more effectively, that are going to help them sleep better at night? And if you focus on that, and you focus on how can I be there for my clients? How can I serve the market more effectively? And every interaction you have with somebody, instead of going, what can I get out of this interaction? Saying, what can I give from this interaction, is going to bring you a ton more value, a lot deeper relationships with people. And so, with trade shows, when I have seen deep relationships, there's people that I know from trade shows 5 or 6 years ago that are reaching out to me with opportunities now, and I'm looking for opportunities for them. That didn't come because we both were talking about how awesome our product was. It's because we start talking about something we have in common. We build a connection. We continue that on LinkedIn. And then years later, we're still adding value to each other and we're still helping each other. And just to kind of tie a bow on that, with LinkedIn, it's the same way. If you approach it going, how do I get as much as possible from the people who are around me, to how can I add value to the community? How can I add value to the network? The crazy thing is that when you do that, the opportunities come to you. So you don't have to push for those opportunities to happen. They actually, you become a magnet to pull opportunities to you when you take that approach.
Yeah. And I love the way, John puts it here. We're creating a place, at a show, it's in person, right? But we can create those places online and on LinkedIn too, where like the first step is being able to connect with people so that you even have a shot at conversation. But you just reminded me of something that I started thinking about since approaching this from the outside, is that I think part of the challenge here is how do I bring value digitally, right? Because if I'm in person, whether at a show or not, like I can show up with donuts or tacos, or, I can show up with a tangible thing very easily that may or may not be valuable. But, more often than not, it's hard to, say no to gifts of that nature at a show. It might be, some swag or something else. But it's harder for a lot of people to think about like since I'm online, like, and I haven't created content, or I'm just trying to get them into the conversation, then I can give them value, right? Until we get to that conversation, it's like I gotta ask, right? So how have you, helped kind of people realize what kind of value they could bring online?
Man, we got John Joyce and Saleem talking about tacos and popsicle trucks.
I know that's my
A little
bad.
distracted.
My bad, guys. Yeah.
It sounds delicious. But the thing is that all of those things that you just mentioned are completely forgettable. How many trade shows have you been to where you can remember the vendor that gave you a bag that looked cool? And it's not something I'm going to put on my shelf. So if you're going to do something like that, do something that is so high quality and memorable that somebody's going to put it on their shelf. Like if you give me something that I would put in my background in my video, that means non-branded, really nice, high quality gift that is meaningful and thoughtful, I'm going to remember who gave me that gift. So if you're going to go that route, do something above and beyond. But what can you do that's valuable? The secret hack, like there's not very many hacks in the marketing world, in the sales world. I'm a very anti-hack person, because I think at the end of the day, when you do things that are hacks, can it get you some attention? Yes, but it's going to destroy your reputation. But there's one hack, like I'm calling it a hack because it's the ninja brain trick of the world to adding value to people, where they're going to want to find a way to help you. And it is giving that other person a platform to share their expertise. Is what you're doing right now. Am I more likely to, when I run into somebody who needs help in HubSpot, am I more likely to remember you, or the person who connected with me and then said, hey, I run a HubSpot agency and we add all this value to you by this article that we wrote, and go check it out? It's like, no, that's not adding value. What you're doing is actually adding an incredible amount of value to me, because you're giving me your platform to share my ideas and my expertise. Like, and I love you for it. Like, I think that's awesome. You're giving me the opportunity to talk about myself. And who doesn't want to do that? Who doesn't want to share their ideas and expertise? I mean, I guess there's some people out there, but it's their mistake, because
right. Why do you think this is? Yeah. Why do you think it's so hard for organizations, or even individuals, let's say salespeople or whoever, business development, to go this route? Like, because in a lot of these organizations, they have so many trusted relationships already that wouldn't hesitate for a second to do something like this, but it just doesn't even enter their realm of possibility. Why do you think that is?
Well, Saleem, I think maybe you could pull that comment on the screen, because I think that's a great point. I think it's a misaligned incentives really at the end of the day that make this happen. And the only way for an organization to make this shift is, I mean, I would really recommend starting small. Like, I envision if I ever have a sales team, which I'm not sure that I will, but if I ever have a sales team, what I'm going to do is every single rep is going to have their own show that they interview people, and I'm going to help make that happen. I'm going to teach them how to do it. I'm going to support them, every rep, to have their own show, because they're going to meet people and build relationships 10 times faster than our competitors who are cold calling and spamming people to death. And people, the response to that from the sales side is, oh, but that's a long-term approach. I have closed deals for my business, which is really new, in under a month, from outside of my network using this process. I interviewed somebody on my show. He makes an introduction, a warm introduction to somebody else that he thinks I would add value to. And that person buys from me and is now pulling me into other opportunities as well in less than a month. So it's a warm referral, but it came from outside of anybody that I knew. There's opportunities that come up from inside of my network too, and that's awesome, but you're able to actually really quickly move outside your network. And then the thing that's crazy about it is when you build rapport by doing this kind of stuff and having conversations with people, deals move faster. So like, okay, you talk to somebody, they're ready to buy right now because you cold call them and you think, oh, this is going to move faster because they're in market right now. But then you have to build trust, and that takes weeks, sometimes months, even if they're in market and they're evaluating right now. Whereas if you talk to what I call a super connector, someone who's very well connected in the space, and they make a warm introduction to somebody they know is in market, that can close in days or weeks. And I'll give an example of this. One of my clients sells this really high-end radar system, and he met this guy at a trade show. So this is kind of how these two worlds collide. So he meets this guy at a trade show, talks about the product. The guy's pretty interested. They have a follow-up conversation, and then the guy goes dark for 2 months. And my client emailed him 6 times or so over 2 months. And, usually it's value-added content, as in like, hey, this article's relevant to you, whatever. It wasn't just following up to see if you're ready to talk. But still, the guy totally ghosts him. Then he sees this guy speak at an event. It might have been a virtual panel or something. And then my client reaches back out to him and says, hey, that topic was super interesting. Think my audience would benefit from hearing this on a LinkedIn Live. After ghosting him for 2 months, 5 minutes later, the guy responds back and says, yeah, I'd love to come on your show. The guy comes on his show. A week later, he goes, hey, guess what? I just had $500,000 in budget open up, and I want to buy your product. Here's the name of my procurement lady. She's going to fulfill the details of this. And that's turned into $700K over the last year. That was from the first LinkedIn Live that my client did. So, I was a little lucky to get, there's a little luck involved in that too, but that deal moved forward in a couple weeks to finalization, when that product typically takes 6 to 18 months for a deal to close. And so, no, this process and taking this approach and being focused on how you add value to the other person, it actually moves incredibly fast to revenue, faster, in my opinion, than cold calling people.
Yeah, I mean, like, God, I love that example, because there's just so much power. Literally, you don't. Like, if you have to cold anything anymore, you're just not trying. Like, you're just not, because these situations, also what you highlighted, this is not a replacement for the in-person stuff that has gotten you good results.
Yeah,
but this is how you scale. This is how you scale that stuff, and also make that stuff move faster, right? Because what most people underestimate, and it's very hard to, like, some people just don't go this far in the thought process. But what happens is, that referral, or the other person who needs to be involved in the deal or the decision-making process, instead of, hey, I saw Joe at the show, think he's going to be a perfect fit. Here's his email address, right? Instead, it can be, hey, here's Joe at the show. He sent me this link where he's talking about our specific problem and solution with this industry person that we know and trust. Now they see you, they hear you, they're building trust without you needing to be in a live conversation with them. And that's the kind of stuff that moves this stuff faster, right? And that example of 16 to 18 month, like, it's so hard to combat that, understanding that your deals actually don't have to take that long. But when you can get to the decision maker, you just start playing a different game when you build their trust.
Yep.
And they have the power to just move through decisions, which most of them do. But there's a lot of risk sometimes when they do it that way. So without the trust and the other activity, they're unlikely to do it. But when the time is right and they know it's going to help the business, they're making decisions quickly. Right. And that was such a great example. And you mentioned it was lucky. I'm a big proponent of making the space for luck, and luck will happen. Right. And, if you don't start this
but getting somebody to buy from you from a cold call is also lucky. So I think the thing is, like, right. I was thinking about this the other day because I've talked to a ton of salespeople in the last year, probably 100 plus salespeople. And when we're talking about the top reps and then people go, oh, this person cold called. When I really dig into that story, that person happened to land a really huge client through cold calling. And then that gave them the space to network and build relationships or cold call more, but they didn't have the same level of pressure as the other people on their team. So they were able to relax. And when you relax and you're not, being pushy as a salesperson, you're going to close more deals. But they just happened to get lucky with landing a big client early on working for that business a lot of times. And then, the other reps might not have been successful, and you go, oh, it's because they weren't trying as hard. You should do more of what this guy did. But it's like, well, that guy had this huge client that he's sitting on that's helping him reach his numbers. Whereas the other person over here had to be a lot more aggressive and a lot more pushy. And the more pushy they are, the less they close. And it ultimately ends up being a self-fulfilling prophecy. So, whatever activity you're going to do, if you're going to close business, you have to do something that can scale up. Because even what we're talking about, like if you want to close revenue, if you're starting a business and you go, I need to close revenue now, you need to have a ton of conversations, like 10 a week or something with people. And some of those could be through a LinkedIn Live. And then there's some other things you could do to drum up conversations in between your LinkedIn Lives or from content you're creating. And, there's all kinds of different ways to do that. But you have to be having an incredible amount of conversations. Like you got to talk to 50 people a month or 60 people. I don't know, a lot. Yeah. And then if you do that, you're going to end up running into people who are in market now, and you're going to have built trust, and those deals are going to move super quickly. So it's not that different from like, you have to do a lot of activity if you're going to close deals now. It's just, are you going to do that activity in something that like cold calling, where as soon as you do it, the value's done? Like if they don't move forward, you get no future value? Or do you want to do that by building a deep relationship with the other person on honestly less effort than cold calling anyway? And then when that person's in market, they're going to remember you and come back to you when they are ready to buy. And if they're ready to buy right now, you're going to move the deal faster anyway. So anyway.
Yeah, it's the same. We still need conversations and relationships, right? This is just hands down, and there's so much data to prove that this is a better way to do it. And whether you can or not, especially as a salesperson, should not be the question, because you're already doing this inside of the sales process, especially for the teams that are like, oh, as soon as we get them in the door, like we have a great close rate. Yeah. It's like, okay, I need to bring that outside of the door then, right? Yep. And then watch the qualified, leads or opportunities or whatever you want to refer to them, watch those happen, because what they're not understanding is that relationship process, that trust building process is a part of the product that they're selling at that point, right?
Yeah.
Saleem's got a good question here. Is there any guest on your shows that is not chosen based on a potential downstream opportunity? Bring in the fire.
Yeah, help me. I'm not quite. Maybe rephrase the question for me.
Like, does there always have to be possible dollars at some point down the line to invite somebody on your show to talk to them?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think this is like this balancing act you have to figure out, because if you're just going to invite whoever you feel like in on your show because you like talking to them, it's a hobby, and that's fine. It's fine to have a hobby. But that's not a sales. It's not a sales activity at that point, right? And maybe you could produce something down the road, whatever. But on the flip side, you can't just be looking for people who are in market right now, and you can't just be looking for potential customers. So, like, you're inviting me on this show. Am I going to buy from you? No, I'm not going to buy from you, at least not anytime soon. I have no need for what you're doing, you know? So you're having me on your show, but this is doing a few things for you at the same time. So it's value to you. So one, I'm sharing expertise that's hopefully helpful to your audience and helps you get across a point of view to your audience from somebody else besides you. So I know that we share a lot of similar ideas. You're now getting me to say what you've been trying to tell clients from a different perspective. So that can help you move deals along. You could potentially send this episode to somebody you're trying to get to move forward or make a decision. So it becomes a sales asset at that point. So there's value on that side of it. On the flip side, I talk with people all the time, and I run into people who need services. And so you're building a relationship with me, and then I'm out talking to people all the time. And now if there's an opportunity, I'm far more likely to remember you and talk about you and make an introduction to you than if you hadn't had me on the show and you just shoot me a message and go, Joe, we do HubSpot stuff. If you ever have somebody, let me know. You know, it's like, cool. If that ever happens, I'll let you know. But now it's like, I'm going to be much more proactive about looking for those opportunities. And so the interesting thing is I've actually seen deals close faster, not by having people on who I think will buy from me, but having people on who influence the people who buy from me. And then when you build a relationship with that super connector and you're not going into it, like, let me say it this way. I know I'm kind of rambling, so let me make it tighter. You have to be extremely intentional about who you have on your show. And there has to be business opportunity that will come out of it. But that doesn't mean that you should only have prospects on your show who you think are going to buy from you right now. So, you know, the business opportunity can be relationships. And then when you go into that conversation, I think this is the key that actually makes this process work. You go into that conversation not saying, what am I going to get from this? Or how can I use this relationship to get more sales? You go into that conversation going, how can I make this person look as good as possible? How can I help them share their expertise? And how can I make a connection for them with somebody in my network or give them an opportunity after the show is done? If you take that approach, it's crazy what happens, because the person on the other end goes, I like Joseph. I appreciated him. And then what I've had happen in the last couple of weeks in running this business is I have 4 or 5 different people in different networks who are actively talking about what I do to their friends to try to bring me in on a deal. And like, to the point where I've said, hey, can we like figure out a referral agreement or something? And they're like, no, I just like connecting people. And they're talking about what I'm doing to 4 or 5 or 6 people. And those people, each one of them, are very influential in their community. And so because I've added value to them, I've looked for ways to serve them, and I haven't been pushing them to try to buy from me. They're actively advocates for what I'm doing and bringing me into opportunities that I wouldn't have gotten otherwise. So I know that's kind of a maybe a long-winded answer, but
it's a brilliant segue, sir. That's what that is. Because Joe's starting up a coaching program to kind of teach people how to do this. And like he says, like, I just would love to see more people figure out how to do this, right? And so having somebody like Joe on, who I know is, you know, capable of coaching people up for this, like, the more the merrier. There's enough, you know, business to go around for all of us when we're approaching it from this angle. And while, you know, I've had conversations with people about, you know, how to do this. We used to we were focused on it, you know, ourselves as we started the agency, you know, repurposing content and then what to do with it and stuff like that. Like, yet we still don't have nearly enough people leveraging this platform specifically in the way that they could be. So I'd love for you to share, you know, what you're up to in terms of, you know, coaching people up on this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I work in a couple different ways, and the coaching program is something that I'm getting ready to launch here shortly. So I do work with people in businesses one-on-one. So if there's people who are like, hey, I want to launch this, I want to move quick, I've got budget, don't have as much time, or, it's hard for me to get momentum on my own, you could always reach out to me and we could chat about that. But essentially what I do is I help business owners or individual sales contributors become a trusted authority in their space that generates warm referrals from outside their network. So basically, I help you implement exactly what we're talking about today, and be able to repeat that over and over again. And so my goal with working with clients isn't to for you to have to pay me into perpetuity. It's, hey, let's work together. I'm going to teach you a system and a process for repeatably getting these referrals and relationships coming in. So the coaching program, I'm launching it the week of the, I think, June 17th, probably actually starting on the 18th. And it's a 90-day program where I'll be doing a group coaching, teaching people exactly how to, first 30 days is how to create content with the people that you want to know. Month number 2 is how to join into conversations that are already happening and, make the most of things that are already going on. And then month number 3 is, okay, how do you turn that activity into more one-on-one business conversations with people who are going to help you increase revenue and, generate revenue into the business. So if you're interested in doing that, it's going to be $1,500. And since this is on LinkedIn, reach out to me on LinkedIn, shoot me a DM, and love to have you part of the program and teach you how to do this.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that 90-day approach. Because no matter how bullish we are on how something like LinkedIn or even LinkedIn Live can work for you, especially if you're already, that trusted authority and you're the one going to speak at trade shows, but you never show up online. You always ask for the quick wins and the low hanging fruit. This is it. This is it for you. But it's not as simple as just asking LinkedIn for permission to go live and just scheduling a bunch of LinkedIn lives, and then everything's going to work out, right? There's a lot to this. And if you haven't practiced and been trained, speaking virtually and on camera is a little bit different than in person, right? Especially if you thrive on like audience feedback, because you will get none in this format. But that's okay. So yeah, awesome that so happy to see you get that started. I think it's going to be, immensely valuable for people who decide to, join you on that journey. And with that, like, anything else you want, what do you think is the main takeaway, today for anybody watching this?
I mean, if I can get one message across to people, it's stop focusing on generating leads and instead generate conversations with the right people. And if you're focused on the type of people that you need to know that are going to drive your business forward, and you can have more conversations with them, your content should be focused on how do you generate more conversations, because those lead to real opportunities much faster than getting a bunch of tire kickers to download your ebook or whatever else you're working on there.
Well said, sir. Well said. Looking for human connection and relationships here. Lead gen tactics, unlikely to get you there in 2024. All right, man. Well, this has been an awesome conversation. Appreciate you stopping by today. And that coaching program gets started on June 17th, you said?
Yeah, the week of the 17th, probably June 18th. I think I'm getting that right. It's going to be most likely on Tuesdays. Will be like the training day where we're going to have an hour, train you, equip you, give you what you need. And yeah, so reach out for more details.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, whether you reach out or you just, want to follow us for more information on this stuff, you're likely to get it. So as we do that, please find the opportunity and let's grow. Have a great Wednesday, everybody. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.